Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we are looking at this interesting devotional called Persevere. It's kind of a blend of faith and psychology and leadership advice. And we're going to be pulling out some golden nuggets from this to help you build a resilient mindset and navigate tough situations with grace.
Yeah, I think what makes this devotional so unique is that it doesn't just offer, those feel-good platitudes or empty encouragement. It really tries to delve into the practical and psychological side of perseverance,
Yeah.
which makes it really relevant for anyone, regardless of their background or even their beliefs.
Yeah. And it starts with this really classic metaphor of the glass being half full or half empty, which really highlights how our perspective shapes our reality, right?
Right.
But it goes beyond just, that simple think positive mantra. It frames this optimistic outlook as like practical faith. Exactly. It's about trusting that even when things are tough, God will provide what we need. It's like choosing to focus on the full part of that glass rather than, what's missing, which, as Philippians 4:6-7 suggests, can lead to greater peace and even unlock creativity.
I can see how that, just that shift in focus could make a huge difference. But what about those times when negativity just kind of creeps in? How does this devotional address that?
Well, it contrasts that optimistic outlook with the dangers of pessimism, actually using Proverbs 15:13 as a reference point. And it explains how a scarcity mindset, that feeling of never having enough, can lead us to, feeling stuck and discouraged, like we're constantly staring at that empty part of the glass.
Yeah. It's like our brains are wired for negativity. Sometimes I know mine can be. But the devotional doesn't stop there. What I thought was really impressive is how it kind of subtly weaves in some psychological concepts as well. Yeah, it doesn't explicitly name them,
Mm.
but you can definitely see the parallels. For example, it talks about alarmism.
Yeah.
And that really aligns with the psychological concept of catastrophizing.
Yeah.
Basically, it's when we blow problems way out of proportion,
Yeah.
imagining those worst case scenarios.
Oh, catastrophizing. I've been there.
We've all been there.
My brain goes into overdrive. It's like creating disaster scenarios out of, thin air.
Right.
Um, for our listener who, might not be familiar with this term, can you unpack it a bit more?
So imagine this.
Yeah.
You miss a deadline at work, right? Catastrophizing would have you thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get fired and I'll never find another job.
Yeah.
That kind of thinking.
Mm.
And it just triggers this wave of anxiety and it prevents us from actually seeing the potential solutions or taking those, necessary steps.
That makes so much sense. But how do we combat that, this tendency to catastrophize? Does the devotional offer any guidance there?
It does. It subtly connects that idea of alarmism with the biblical idea of renewing the mind from Romans 12:2. And it's about actively challenging those negative thought patterns and replacing them with truth. So instead of spiraling into anxiety, you might tell yourself, okay, I made a mistake, but I can learn from it and I can do better next time.
So it's about consciously shifting our perspective,
Right.
grounding ourselves in truth. But, how do we actually rewire our brains to be more resilient?
Well, this is where the concept of neuroplasticity comes in. You see, each time you choose to persevere, you're literally rewiring your brain. You're carving these new pathways that make it easier to handle stress and bounce back from challenges. And the more you practice pushing through, the stronger those pathways become, making it even easier to face the next obstacle.
So it's like building mental muscle.
Exactly.
That's a really encouraging thought. But it can't just be about individual effort, can it? The devotional also seems to emphasize the role of community, particularly in a leadership context.
Oh, absolutely. The author, being a leader himself, really highlights the importance of creating an environment where people feel supported and encouraged, which, echoes that message in 1 Thessalonians 5:11 to encourage one another and build each other up. And true encouragement, it's about fostering a space where people can be honest about their struggles. They can receive constructive feedback and, most importantly, feel a sense of hope that they can actually overcome obstacles.
So it's about creating a safe space for growth, not just offering those empty platitudes or, just kind of brushing things under the rug.
Exactly.
And that makes a lot of sense, especially when it comes to teamwork, because everybody faces challenges, even, the best teams. How does the devotional suggest that we approach setbacks collectively?
Well, it emphasizes the importance of course correction without assigning blame.
Mm.
It's about viewing setbacks as opportunities for learning and growth, not as personal failures or, reasons to point fingers.
So it's about fostering, a culture of learning and support rather than pointing fingers. Do you have a favorite example of this from the Bible?
Yeah, the story of Paul in Acts 16:610 immediately comes to mind. He and his companions, they had this very specific missionary plan, but the Holy Spirit kind of closed doors along the way. And instead of getting discouraged or giving up, they adapted and followed the guidance that they received. And ultimately, they ended up in Macedonia where they had a huge impact.
It shows how, flexibility and adaptability are key elements of perseverance, right? Sometimes what we think is a setback is actually a redirection towards something even greater.
Exactly. And that actually highlights a crucial point that the devotional makes, this distinction between blind persistence and wise perseverance. It's saying that not all pushing through is created equal.
Right. There's a difference between blindly charging ahead and being able to discern when we need to adjust course. I'm curious how the devotional explores that difference.
Well, it uses the story of Job to illustrate this really beautifully.
Yeah.
Job faced incredible adversity, but he never lost his faith. However, he wasn't passive in his suffering. He wrestled with God, he questioned him, he even expressed his anger.
Yeah, Job's story is so powerful because it acknowledges, those raw human emotions that come with suffering. He didn't just, grin and bear it.
Exactly. And the devotional points to Job's wrestling with God as an example of true perseverance. It's about holding on to faith while acknowledging the pain and seeking understanding. And it's perfectly captured in Job 13:15. Though he slay me, yet will I hope in him.
That verse speaks volumes about the depth of Job's faith. It wasn't blind optimism. It was like this deep-rooted trust in God, even amidst, unimaginable suffering.
Right. And sometimes persevering means knowing when to ask for help. The devotional uses the example of Moses learning to delegate in Exodus 18. Moses was burning out trying to do everything himself, and it was his father-in-law, Jethro, who wisely advised him to share the load.
It's a good reminder that even the strongest leaders need support, right? Asking for help isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of wisdom.
Absolutely. And that brings us to a beautiful passage that's highlighted in the devotional, Psalm 26. It kind of reinforces this theme of persevering with integrity.
Yeah. The Psalms are so rich with, emotion and honesty. I'm interested to hear how this particular song connects to the theme of perseverance.
Well, verse 2 says, "Examine me, Lord, and try me. Test my heart and my mind." And it's called to self-reflection, to make sure our actions are aligned with God's truth.
So it's about checking our motives, right? Making sure that we're not just pushing forward for the sake of it, but that our perseverance is rooted in something deeper.
Exactly. And then verse 9 says, "Do not gather my soul with sinners, nor my life with bloodthirsty men." This kind of brings in that importance of community once again.
Yeah. The people we surround ourselves with have a huge impact on our ability to persevere. It's like that verse from 1 Corinthians 15:33, bad company corrupts good character.
That's a great connection. And, it's not about judging others, but about recognizing that the influences we choose can either uplift us or drag us down. Surrounding ourselves with people who inspire us, who challenge us to grow, and support us when we stumble is crucial.
So we've explored the mindset, and the community aspects of perseverance. But let's get practical. How can our listeners actually cultivate this quality in everyday life? What specific advice does the devotional offer?
It offers a few really practical suggestions. One that stood out to me was the practice of daily gratitude.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about gratitude practices. How does the devotional suggest we approach this? Is it just about, thinking positive thoughts?
It's more than just thinking positive thoughts. It's about intentionally shifting our focus. The devotional recommends starting each morning by listing 3 things you're grateful for. It could be anything, big or small, like a beautiful sunrise or, a kind gesture from a stranger, or even just a delicious cup of coffee.
Yeah, that sounds simple enough. But I can see how that could make a big difference. Instead of dwelling on what's wrong, we're actively looking for what's right.
Exactly. It's about training our brains to recognize the abundance around us
Hey.
rather than fixating on, what we lack. And this actually ties in with another important suggestion, which is finding the right community to support our growth.
Yeah, we talked about the importance of community earlier, but how do we actually go about finding those spaces where we feel genuinely supported and encouraged?
Yeah, the devotional reminds us that it's not enough to just be around people. We need to actively seek out communities that align with our values and, offer genuine encouragement. It's like that passage from Hebrews 10:24-25 that talks about stirring one another up to love and good works
Yeah.
and, not neglecting to meet together.
I love that image of stirring each other up. It's about finding those people who inspire us to be better, right?
Right.
But what about when we hit those inevitable roadblocks? How does the devotional suggest that we stay motivated, especially when the going gets tough?
It emphasizes the importance of celebrating small victories. It's so easy to get caught up in this big, daunting goal and forget to acknowledge the progress we're making along the way.
That's so true. We often focus so much on what we haven't achieved yet instead of recognizing how far we've come.
Exactly. And the devotional connects this to Zechariah 4:10, which says, "Do not despise these small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin." It's a beautiful reminder that every step forward, no matter how small, is worth celebrating.
Yeah, it's like those small victories are fuel for the journey,
Right.
helping us to stay motivated and focus on the process, not just the destination. While this deep dive has been incredibly insightful, what stands out to you as the most impactful takeaway?
For me, it's the understanding that perseverance isn't just about, gritting our teeth and pushing through. It's about aligning our mindset, our actions, and our community with a deeper sense of purpose and faith.
I completely agree. And I love how this devotional doesn't just offer vague advice, but it gives us these practical tools and techniques backed by, scripture and insights from psychology to help us make perseverance a part of our daily lives.
Yeah, and it ends on such a beautiful and powerful image. It talks about keeping our eyes fixed on God's horizon, even when the path beneath our feet feels uncertain and challenging.
It's a beautiful reminder that even when we can't see the whole path ahead, we can still choose to walk forward with faith, trusting that God is leading us. It's not about having all the answers or knowing exactly how things will turn out. It's about trusting in God's guidance every step of the way.
It really leaves us with a powerful question to ponder. How can you keep your eyes fixed on God's horizon, even when the path beneath your feet feels uncertain and challenging?
That's a great question to reflect on. As you navigate the inevitable ups and downs of life, dear listener, remember the power of perspective, the importance of community, and the beauty of celebrating each step forward. And above all, keep your eyes fixed on that horizon, trusting that God is with you every step of the way. Until next time, keep diving deep.